Welcome to Let's Talk. I'm your host, Casimir McGeown, and we're here at Kingsville District High School to talk about a very important topic in today's society, social media. But before I get into the topic, I want to thank all our crew here at Kingsville District High School and the Grade 9 students especially for all the great camera work they've done this season. And without them and without our producers, Cliff Danby and Jim Bushman, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So for all the TV shows that we've done this year, guys, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Social media, Scott, our guest today is Professor Scott Briscoe from St. Clair College, and I kind of defer to Scott's understanding because social media is a very complex topic.
It is. It's not a small topic. Yeah. I think the best way to start off this conversation is for us to define what exactly social media is. It used to be said that we're going to go on the internet or go on Facebook, and it's not something we go on anymore. It's not a thing. It's everything. It's always there and it's always on. So for students now, it's not a real world versus online world. Mm-hmm. It's a blended world, and it has meaning for, I guess, everybody that uses it. So it's it encompasses everything we do. It's woven into our daily lives. It's literally everything. I think everybody would agree. And it starts from the day we're born. I think from this generation, people from the age of 2, 92% have a digital footprint, meaning that from the day that you're born, you've been online. And I saw that in our class this year, where our full class, they've never experienced a day before the internet. So they were born after the internet, so they're always there. So for them, it's different than it would be for you and I. It's everything. And I think everyone here would agree that that's part of who we are.
I think the reason that this topic was chosen because it is complex and it is a little bit provocative in terms of how the non-millennium type of people, the older people, see it. So Ashley, give us a perception of what you think social media means to you.
To me, I mean, I definitely agree with what Scott's saying, that it is just everything now. There's no way to get around it. It's in everything that we do, in not only our social culture, but also our work culture, because you can't have a company and a job without being online on social media. But I think the biggest problem is the disconnect between the youth culture and the older generation. And the older generation sees it as so much of a problem only because they don't understand how integrated it is into the lives of younger people. You can't have a young person in, Canada or North America can't have a life without social media. That's just a fact nowadays. But that's not how it was for the older generation.
Yeah. And Erica, how do you find it?
I find it very interesting. Nowadays, we were born and here we are, and the entire world is a cyberspace. Basically, we walk around in public and you see someone on their phone and they're just looking down, not looking ahead. And with the internet, there's pros and there's cons. The pros of it is an amazing source to get in touch with everyone. Everyone has a social media account. But the cons are, it can come with a price. There's the issue of texting and driving. There's the issue of cyberbullying. And of course, that's just a huge problem.
Well, you see, to me, life can be simple, no matter what the issue is. 30 years ago it was color television. Then it was the mobile phone and all of these things. People thought the world was coming to an end. And then with social media, people think we've lost the personal touch. You folks are so engrossed in it that you're not into personal conversations. And I know the extremes are not true. So there's an element of balance. And I think it's people like Scott in positions of teaching that have to explain the balance and how important it is. How would you interpret that?
Well, I don't think it's just social media. I think with anything in life, it's about balance, and there's pros and cons, and it is up to the teachers and the parents to now instill that sense of what is reality and what you see on social media that isn't true.
So how do you cope with it?
I just try and tell myself, I'm 24, so I grew up a little bit before the internet, so I can really see the comparison between the two.
You're so old. That's amazing.
No, but it's interesting for me because it was in that generation of crossing over from what had become not really a big thing into a huge thing. I just try and tell myself what reality is. I think parents need to instill, don't sugarcoat it. Don't say, oh yeah, bad things happen on the internet. Tell them the details of what can happen online. With cyberbullying, tell them the details of cases that have happened, the predators online. Show them people who are living in third world countries and say, this is what reality is. It's not everything that you see online is reality.
See, Connie, I know you're very savvy about the internet and online and social media, but you have to acknowledge that not everybody is as aware as the young people are. So there is a perception when they see you invest so much time that maybe all that time is not necessarily productive.
I definitely think that there is a perception because of this, but I think it also matters what environment that you're living in. For example, I am an advertising student, so I do engage in different environment maybe where social media is a very important, crucial role, where it is time consuming, but the way I see it is it's not time being spent negatively because I am living in this world. And I think what people are maybe a little unaware of is that the world has changed. It is changing. Getting into a more cyber or internet world, meaning that you have to engage with your consumers differently and create content that is engaging for your consumers, because social media kind of creates a place where unique connections can be made, connections that you may not have been able to make before, which I think is very important.
Okay. So Scott, the reality factor is when you teach these classes, when you see these young people engage in what they do, is how do you create the balance? Like that, this just doesn't come about automatically.
No, and balance is elusive. I think it's the first thing that I've really had to wrap my head around is the perception of when you just mentioned communication, the fact that we're not having it. My definition of communication is much different than my class. I could think that they're not communicating at all because they're texting and they're doing it, but in reality, that is their definition of communicating. That is how they communicate. So when I understand how they communicate and how the world communicates now, and depending on, like we talk about advertising, of how we communicate with targets, we try to find the best way to reach target and how they communicate. So what may seem odd to me, it's every day to this generation. That's how they do it. And it's not really their choice. They don't choose to communicate like this. This is just how they've grown up. These are the tools that they've had. And I looked at a recent thing. It's parents now are choosing baby names based on available social media handles and available domain names. So they come out of the womb already on social media. They're already there. So for them, as much as I think that may not be effective communicating, to them it is. So the balance I try to find is, okay, we look at it like this, but when dealing with different generations or dealing in the physical space, we have to be cognizant of that.
But I think social media kind of travels all domains of life, like it's into the personal life. I can see it in the job situation where you need it to create opportunities. I can see it when it's in the university, when you're doing, lecture as much as you are online as much. But when it comes to the personal domain, I think you have to be honest and say you're spending too much time and not having face-to-face conversations. Leslie, what do you think? Am I missing the point here or what?
Well, I think it's the convenience of social media that makes people more apt to use it. The fact that people can connect with someone within seconds makes it easier for them. So instead of calling someone, you may text them, since it's a lot easier to get a hold of them. And that definitely plays a major role in the use of social media.
But there's a balance.
Definitely, yes.
Where does your personal conversation come into play?
Well, if you wanted to ask someone a question, let's say about homework that you had, or you wanted to talk to someone about a personal situation, you may just text them either to avoid awkward physical confrontation or because it's more convenient. So
Paul, is there a balance in your life and your friends' lives, or are you just investing too much time in terms of how you use social media?
Me and my friends use social media a lot, but we try to limit ourselves to it around like a little bit, like maybe an hour a day. We don't try to use it too much because, yet again, we're trying to socialize in real life. We're trying not to get too addicted to the social media like Facebook messaging or anything like that.
Yeah. Paul, be honest now. Girls or boys use social media more? Which one?
I think it's used pretty evenly because whenever I go on, I see the same amount on the line. Whenever I look to the right and it says people online, I see a lot of the same people post the same stuff, and yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Brittany?
I feel like there definitely needs to be a balance. There's a time and a place where social media should be used, but like you said, when we're in the same room as somebody, you should engage with conversation with them rather than always being looking down at your phone.
So how much time do you spend per day?
I spend quite a lot of time on social media, but when I'm with people, I try to put my phone down and engage in conversation with them because I just think that's respectful.
Okay. So Patrick, I know you've got a quite an intense view of how we handle social media. Tell us the good things about it.
The good things about social media, first off, is just being able to connect with people. That in itself is like, I could connect with people in my school or in a club that I'm in. But for me personally, I have family in Germany and family in the United States that I don't get to see almost ever. So with social media, I get to talk to them, get to see photos, I get to see their life that I'm not a part of, but I am because I'm related to them. And so then we get to talk about what they're doing, what I'm doing. And without social media, I probably wouldn't be able to talk to them because we have such busy lives. Because we can, with social media, we can just send a message and then just wait for a reply. Whereas the alternative would be to call them, but again, different time zones, busy lives. With social media, it just makes it so easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Alex, how do you find social media helps your school situation, for example?
In school, I find that social media can be very helpful. Like Layla said, with homework, you can ask someone if you need help or just to get some advice on homework or anything. On the other hand, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. You can spend a lot of time just scrolling through a news feed and waste a lot of time, but also you can communicate with people that you wouldn't normally communicate with, which is a big plus.
So what best serves you for social media yourself?
Mostly I use it as a communication device to get in touch with people or to set up a meeting or something, like just to use it more of as a means to an end, more as a communication device, like a telephone almost.
So Scott, the governance issue is also one for me is important. How do we handle that gap? There is an obvious gap between generations here, right? And you guys you know how to manipulate the media to the extent that your parents really can't control what you're doing. So how does that become an issue?
It's tough because governance, especially with the web, it's basically non-existent to a certain extent. Like obviously there's things we can or cannot do. I truly believe that governance online comes from the home. I know I've got two small girls and I know what they do, and they both use social media differently. I'm very reluctant to get them on, but I have them sign social media contracts. My oldest starts her day doing FaceTime with her best friend, and they do it until they go to school. And my youngest watches TV with that. But I know what they do. We share passwords. We have these talks where I explain what bullying is. I explain what it's like online, because I think we talked earlier that I always go back to this, telephone tough guy type scenario where people seem to be tougher on the phone because you're not face to face. And that always transfers over to the web, because if you spend so much time online, you forget the offline implications of it, feeling that these are real people. They do have real feelings. And we tend to lose sight of that when we post. So I think that I've heard some great ideas here about these clubs that are happening, the online bullying, information in the schools, parents. I think that's a great start with it. But you've got to remember, social media, even though it's been around for 10, 15, 20 years, we're still in its infancy. It's still weaving itself through our daily lives. So it's going to get better. There's going to, parents are becoming more aware of what they're doing. They're becoming more educated. And I'm forced to become more aware of certain platforms my younger daughters are using just so I can take an active role in it. So you guys, I'm not sure with governance there. I find that the web governs itself, and we'd be surprised. I don't think we give enough credit to people. They tend to govern bad behavior sometimes, where you'll see some posts, but for the most part, I think it's at home and at school where we start to shape this behavior.
Yeah, so Connie, in your own personal circumstance, does your family govern what you do?
I would say in my own personal circumstances that they do not actually, but I also would say that they did not grow up in an era with even the internet. So to them it is definitely a foreign topic. But I think that through the introduction of social media, I've actually introduced my parents to social media, whether that be FaceTime, Facebook, different messaging apps. And I actually think that's actually brought us closer in certain ways. Like I'm able to communicate with them through these devices, and they're also able to communicate with people back in China, family back in China, as Patrick was mentioning earlier, that was not capable before. And actually this movement was actually really recent. My parents had just traveled to China in January and came back, purchased an iPad, and they haven't put it down since. So,
Can I interrupt for quickly? Even though I'm sure most of you, you're more advanced than your parents, right? So when we talk about governance, I think that it's important not to look at governing social media behavior based on social media experience. I think that the governance that I'm talking about and the oversight that I'm talking about is the upbringing that you've had, the moral conduct that you've had, the right and wrong, the way that we respect people. I think that is the governance that I'm talking about. It's the acceptable behavior that we are raised with. We transfer that to our behavior on social media. So I think that governance of family rules, acceptable behavior governs our activity online.
My only problem is that some parents are not capable of governing, either through ignorance, through lack of confidence on the computer. And you folks are very savvy, so you do all the, there's a problem there. The other problem I have, and we can address those two as we go around, is one I think where the iPhone is aptly called iPhone because it's all about me. And you guys, you take your own selfies, a lot of people are on there promoting themselves at every facet of the day and night and whatever. And it seems to me there's a lot of narcissistic behavior that is promoted that to me is not healthy. Like it's all about me and what I do each day in minute detail. I'm not saying everybody does it, but there's a tendency for that. And I just don't think it's a healthy thing to do. What do you think?
I definitely don't think it's healthy to be able to post a picture and within 5 minutes you have comments saying, oh, you look so good and everything. I think social media has made us more vain too, because I will scroll through Instagram and I have a lot of celebrities on my Instagram. So I see them living these lives or in a nice outfit. I say, I want that outfit. I want that haircut. I want to look good with them too. So I think it has made us more narcissistic and more vain, wanting to look good, wanting to keep up more with the trends as well.
So Ashley, you're pretty savvy. You understand that that's an issue, not just maybe for yourself, but for young people. How do we handle that? And if there's no governance?
I think what it comes back to is that it's not enough just to teach young people how to act growing up and how to interact with each other. The world is changing, right? So the way that we teach them is not the way that we used to teach children what's right and what's wrong. Everything has to change and adapt to it, but I think it also has to come into the school system. I think that dealing with social media is something that needs to also be incorporated into the education. And we're seeing, even with the new sex ed curriculum that's coming out, that has that slight affiliation with predators online and educating children about that it all kinds of ties in together, but it's just starting to get onto that edge of teaching them about social media. But in the fact that the world is changing, social etiquette is changing, behaviors are changing, so does the education. And I think that not only from the parents, that needs to come from the school as well.
So, you talk about sex education on a new curriculum. It's a topic that I hope to pursue at another time, but the parents are very concerned. But you know what? The kids can access anything on television that appears to be a sensitive issue. Why not do it in a curriculum at least has balance and it has teachability and it has been taught by people who are responsible? I don't understand to the extent of the opposition to that, because with proper control and proper management, we can use those sensitive topics in a proactive way. Can we not?
I believe so. I think the worst thing we could do is shy away from it.
Yeah.
If we don't teach the behavior, if we don't teach what it's about, and if we don't teach the consequences of what can happen, then we're just setting ourselves up with failure. And we look at, I think, the bigger picture with this narcissistic behavior. Studies have been shown that we are creating a narcissistic society with it. And I think that it's very dangerous. I think it's one of the most dangerous things that social media brings to the table. You see these people living these lives, and I think we mentioned earlier taking pictures with Instagram and saying no filter and showing how beautiful and how great everyone's life is. And you look at your own life, and we pale in comparison to these fake worlds that people put out there, and we strive to achieve this fake reality. And when we don't, we become depressed. We think that we're not doing what everyone else is doing, and it's just setting ourselves up to, for a huge downfall. So I think that, especially with younger kids, of saying that it's not necessarily what you think it is, right? We try to put our best foot forward. In some cases, it's a lie. So if we don't educate them that, their life isn't really this idyllic society that you're living in, it's not this perfect little life, they can handle it better. But if we never teach them this, they'll never know.
Yeah, I don't know what your view on the new sex curriculum is, but using that as an analogy, can you imagine going to school and just be told, go on the computer and learn whatever you want to learn and we'll give you a mark? And you don't have teachers there to govern you. To me, that's the same kind of meaning. Like, they go on here, parents don't get involved because A, they don't know how to be, they're too busy. Sometimes even my own family, like, the kid has got an iPad and he's 3 and the other kid's 4, and they're on the iPad. So it's just a cheap babysitter.
That's what they say.
And like, that to me is scary.
I agree 100%. And I think like what you're saying about narcissism, so these selfies are making people more selfish in a way. And my school board, WCDSB, we have a program called Getting Along Digitally, which is taught in the communications technology courses. And basically what we do as high school students, we go into classes and teach about grades 6, 7, and 8 about how to use the internet safely. So we talk to them about cyberbullying. We teach them about like getting along on the internet, basically. So watch for internet predators and how to buy stuff safely, not to give out your credit card, not to give out all your information. So that's kind of what we're doing.
So Leslie, what do you think? Should we be concerned about the status of the social in the sense of governance?
Definitely. I participated in the Getting Along Digitally project as well. And our topic was catfishing, and a major influence of catfishing is being deceptive and not being truthful over the internet. And it's very easy for people to do things like that. So that's definitely a major aspect to consider when using the internet. And it is very important to be aware of things like that.
So Scott, you're sending out these graduates from St. Clair College with a very superior knowledge of the social media implications for advertising, say. But they're also very savvy in the way the world of the social media works. What is the school system missing in terms of educating them in a balanced fashion?
It's a difficult question. It's a loaded question.
Yeah, I'm good at loaded questions.
Yeah, I know. It's see, our program's a little different because they've done a great job of integrating social and mobile and digital into our traditional courses, right? So we try to give them a well-rounded education, but coming in, I think that the one thing that's missing before they come to St. Clair is, in essence, I don't know how you would ever teach, but how the real world works. We can teach it, but actually seeing the real world consequences, the physical consequences, the physical actions that happen, they can see how the two come together. We do it in third year through internships, but coming into school, like we can say, market this business, use social to market a business, market a product. We'll just use an example, saying that we're going to work for a jewelry store and I want you to use social media to market this engagement ring. But if there's someone who's never actually purchased an engagement ring, if it's somebody who's never looked at an engagement ring, they can use all the tools in the world, but they still don't know what it is. And that can apply to any industry. And the only way that you do that is get experience. I think to a certain extent, we shelter a tiny bit, right? And it's letting go a little bit. So that's why I think that governance will help, like from the home, and that will help out.
Okay, the other thing I think we need to emphasize too is that social media has done a lot of good things, right? From a global perspective, from an informative perspective, you're able to access resources really quickly. You're able to access information. You don't have to go to libraries anymore. So wouldn't you promote that, Connie, in a good way, that the good things in social media are worth promoting?
Definitely, I would promote that. I think that social media has been probably one of the better things to come out of the internet, in my opinion. Especially with businesses, and with businesses targeting millennials, they know that their audience is active on social media. That's where they're consuming their content. That's what they're looking at, things that voicing their opinions about what they like. And it's almost a more true form of advertising if you're delivering these people exactly what they want, and we're actually listening to our consumers now instead of just guessing, hey, maybe they'll like this blue color this season. I believe, I know this is an example, but Kim Kardashian, she's actually an example of someone who does really use her social media outlet. It may seem a little bit pointless, but for her to just simply throw out, I'm gonna launch a shoe collection this year, do you like this shoe or this shoe? And getting 1 million responses on Twitter, that's probably your most effective form of making business decisions, and you're actually saving a lot of money in that process as well.
So from an advertising perspective, what exactly is it that social media does that the average consumer should know about in terms of their savviness to get the best product for themselves?
Well, I could say from an advertiser, it's targeting. People don't realize that the second you log on to any social media account, you're being tracked, your activities are being recorded, and you are being marketed to based on what you do. So if you look at a store for shoes, you're going to see those exact same shoes follow you around the internet wherever you go. But understanding, very few people understand actually how that model works. It's just always remembering in the back of your mind that whatever you do, it's being recorded. Somebody's looking at it. And if you follow certain brands, they'll reward you for your loyalty. So a lot of places now, because it's cost effective and they can target, you can follow certain brands and get exclusive deals. You can, being part of these social media clubs, their followers, they reward this type of engagement. So it's our next frontier for digital commerce.
The other danger is I saw this week was the opposite of the good is the bad. And the bad was when someone created a scenario in this community where they said that they were being attacked by a gun person in their own home, and their mother was hiding in the cupboard, and dad had a gun and she was hiding. In the end of the day, it wasn't anybody. They had put in it was a hoax scenario where these hackers got in, and the police everybody got, I don't know, it cost a lot of money. Those are dangerous scenarios that we should be cognizant about, right?
They are, but I don't want to put them all in the bucket of social, because we could do the same thing with a call to a radio station or a call to a TV or a call to a newspaper. We've just made it easier for everybody to have a voice, and that voice on social media is magnified. So before it was just a one-to-one. Now if you've got a couple thousand people following you on Twitter, a couple thousand friends on Facebook, your voice can go to 1,000 people, then 1,000 more, and it will just spread. So the messaging isn't different, just the megaphone is larger. And it's dangerous, and that's why I think coming from the home, if we instill a sense of right or wrong, if we instill how to use this, if we instill what the consequences are, that's the start. That's where I think it will come from. But
so what's the one good thing, Patrick, that if you were to send out to people that you would tell them to remember what social media represents? What is the most important thing for you?
The most important thing kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is just engaging with people and communicating. Like you were saying earlier, that there might be a deficiency in talking to people face to face. For me, I like talking online way better than in person. It's just because I have a little bit more time to formulate what I want to say, and I'm a little more confident in what I write than what I say outright. But there are many other people like me out there that prefer being online, and I don't really see that as a bad thing, because the internet and because all this digital devices, we live in it. We live in this era that the internet's all around us. We're always going to be encompassed by it. So why fight it? Why go against it? So I like social media in that I can communicate the way I want to the people that I want to.
And maybe as a final comment, the one thing that we should be wary of in terms of the social media?